Hey guys, so I'm gonna go over the supplies. There are a few that I don't have that are in your kit, like the color mixing guide, because I don't particularly need a color mixing guide, but it'll be helpful for you. But other than that, I'm just gonna go over some of them because there's some tips and tricks to some of the content, and also just so you know what everything's for. Okay, so the big thing in your kit is this tub. When you open this tub, mine of course has been converted for storage. You'll have your paints that come in the basics student kit in there. Of course, you'll notice I'm missing red. I have a big tub of it because I've used up my tube. So you should have 2 tubes of white, blue, yellow, black, this earth green, and this mustardy brown, and this cool tone umber brown. These you won't use in the assignment 3 and 4 because they're not true tones, but you'll use these. You'll notice that I went through a whole tube of white. I'm pretty sure that's gone. Many students went through both their tubes of white last semester, so you may need to go back to the store and buy a big tube. They come in tubes this size, which should last a little longer. And you can never have too much white paint. Also, you will notice this is actually a different blue. It's a purpley blue, so it's a different blue than the primary blue in your kit. So I bought this as another blue option. So all of these come in your kit. My storage box, which works exactly what it's great for, is storing your paints. There's a tray in the bottom of it. I would just take that out so you have more room. And you have primary red. Now primary red on the phone doesn't look too bad, but it's not it's more of a magenta-y pinky red, more like this, versus a true red like this tub. So this is medium cadmium red, and you can see that's more of a fire engine truck red, and that has more of a pink magenta hue to it. Now, it's totally fine for the semester. You can use that red. When we get to the color mixing, I'll talk about how you can fix that red to make it more of this color. But if you want, you can also just invest in a tube of cadmium medium red, and you'll have a true neutral warm fire engine truck red. Now, you should also have 2 pads of paper. So the first is smooth Bristol paper. You'll use this for your first assignment and as your sketchbook. So use it to doodle in and come up with ideas in. It's a nice high quality paper, but you have a lot of it, so go ahead and use that. The second pad of paper is the Carson oil and acrylic paper. This is the stuff you'll paint on. So that's a nice pattern painting. That's from the tape painting assignment. So this paper you'll see, I don't know if it'll show on camera yet. It has a texture to it. So it looks like a canvas. It's a little heavier duty and it's primed for paint. So you'll use this from assignment 2 on. One thing, there it is, I would always recommend doing is sacrifice 1 sheet out of your oil paper as your swatch sheet. So you'll notice there's a bunch of different colors going on here, and that's because I've swatched the true blue versus the pathos blue. The green I could mix to the green that comes in the forest green tube. So that's that one. That's a mixed green. That's the magenta red versus the true red versus a red I can mix with that red. So, it gives you some options. It allows you to have basically a scratch sheet, and you can use that for all sorts of things. Sometimes I mix little swatch gradients and stuff, which you'll make a 5 scale gradient. This is a 10 scale gradient. And That's why this page is smaller, is because I used it and then I cut it off so that I could keep it in my tote for easy reference. For this just hangs out in the acrylic pad. The next and last large thing in your kit is going to be an envelope. This is for saving your finished pieces. If we were in class, you would, turn them in with that. So it's useful to hold and store your final pieces. Keep them nice and clean for when you turn them in for the final project, or photograph them for the final project. One thing that's not in your kit, but you might want to pick up, is tracing paper. Now, they come in, this is a pack of 100. So usually if we're an in-class, I supply this one so you don't have to buy it. But if you don't have tracing paper and you have parchment paper or tissue paper, you can pretty much make it work. So, feel free to just improvise for that one. So in your paint kit, it does come with some brushes. These brushes here, the silver handles, I used them last semester. They're decent. They don't fall 100% apart, so that's good, because some brushes do. This one you won't really ever use, because that's really more of a watercolor brush than it is for acrylic. Though I guess you could use it for highlighter. So you'll notice that there's two main tip types. If I can get these protectors off. Okay, so there's square tips. These work really nice for when you want to make a flat edge, because they won't splay. Like if you were trying to paint alongside this brush, they'll paint a nice straight edge, because they won't splay out like a round brush. So this is a number 6 round brush, and you can see as it goes, it kind of gets wider and wider. This is better if you're trying to make a curved or an organic shape, because you can kind of rotate it while you brush. Of course, this is a very big one. Besides the brushes that come in the kit, I believe I have a number 0, which is for super fine detail. That one's a real nice tiny detail brush for making little small marks, and a few others. I think there's just a couple others. And then of course the big 1-inch paintbrush, which you'll use for the assignment 5 definitely, but there might be some times you use it before then. This is for when you want to cover a large area quickly, and you want to blend colors together. You never want to use this brush to mix your paint, because about a half gallon of paint gets absorbed into this brush when you use it. So always make sure that you just mix your paint somewhere else, and then put the tip of your brush into the paint. So brushes, if you have something like this, or it's basically, I think of them as like money bags, but basically like a pen bag or a pencil holder. It's a great place to store your brushes. They'll keep them from getting too beat up. So all my brushes just hang out in there once they're dry. And then this fits in my tub. So my brushes are in the paint. Now you'll have some mixing containers in your kit. I threw them in there because, again, this is something I normally have in the classroom, or students help provide. If you need more mixing containers or the storage containers than what you have, these little Solo Dixie cup things work great. You might recognize these from the salsa bar at Baja Fresh or Chipotle. Or if you work in a restaurant and you have access to them, grab the sleeve of the cups and the lids. This paint was mixed 2 months ago, and it is still fresh and still usable. So I have a whole little storage system of those. As long as there's some moisture in there and they don't get overly dried out, they work just fine. So those aren't included in your kit, but you have something similar. You have some storage containers. Another thing you might want to add, and is not in your kit, is some sort of mixing tray. Now, this is one I've had for years. I like it because it's not, like the cup size is decently sized, it's not too small, but I can also scrape it out into a container after I've used it so I can store the paint, because waste not, want not, right? I have many friends that just use an old kitchen plate. Go to Goodwill, pick up a, 10-cent plate, or go to Dollar Tree and buy a $1 plate, and you can use that for mixing. If you use a plate, you can also cover it in saran wrap, so when you're done with it, you can just pull the saran wrap off and throw it away. And the plate is still clean. So that's some options there. Oh, and I forgot. So there's some other paint options. Again, there's what comes in the kit that's perfectly fine. You can use them. You might need to buy refreshes at some point during the semester, but they will work perfectly. You don't need any other paints. But there are some fun other paints out there. There's a basic set of neons, which is what I created this one with. As you can see, that's highlighter yellow and purple. There's also this kit of metallics and iridescence that are really fun. A lot of these paints have that mixed in, just to add a little extra shimmer and sheen to them. So, there's a lot of fun colors out there. Some of them are harder to mix than others. If you want, you buy whatever you want, but you need at least the kit. Also in the kit is a 18-inch ruler, metal, should have a cork back. This is very helpful for all your drawings. Get you a nice straight line. It's a good quality ruler. It'll last a lifetime. You should have a pencil, number 2H, although if you lose this, any pencil should work. A sharpener, and the best 70-cent eraser ever. This eraser that's in your kit is super nice, and it works really well. So, and it's dust-free. So I have a second bag somewhere that I keep all my pens and pencils in, but I seem to have misplaced it. Next in your kit are Sharpies, but these aren't regular Sharpies. These are actually oil-based, like oil paint Sharpies. So you can hear that they have a mixer in there. There's actually a paint fluid inside. When you open these up, the tip will be white because the fluid hasn't been prepped into the tip. What you'll need to do is you can press down on them, and you can see, because mine is prepped, fluid comes out. If you press down, more fluid comes out versus if you just make a mark. To get this tip prepped, you'll need to press and hold for a very long time, especially this really big guy, because you want it to completely black. And that'll get this pen working and ready to help fill in space quickly. So you'll have these in the extra big tip, the regular medium point, which looks like a normal Sharpie. Again, you'll have to prep this one the same way. It's good to see that these still are working. You'll have this fine point. And now you might go, but they have this in extra fine point, which they do, but it sucks. We used it last semester, and as you draw a line with that tiny little fine point Sharpie tip, it would blurp out ink onto your page. So instead, you should have some fine point micron pens, a little set of those, and they'll be in your kit. I don't have the set handy, and my micron pens are currently boxed up somewhere. So you'll have some extra micron pens for fine line work. So those are all there. Again, if you have a pencil bag, you can keep those all together. You could put them in with your paintbrushes. They won't hurt your paintbrushes any. Yeah. Next in your kit is you're going to have a bunch of tape. You'll have a bunch of these little tiny tapes. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4. Those are really going to be important for assignments 5. You also have some other tapes. You won't have this giant one, but if you want it, it's like $30. You can buy as many tape sizes as you want, but you will definitely have some smaller and then a regular type tape. With tape like this, you can use it, specifically the tape is in the kit for assignment 5, for the tape paintings that end up looking sort of like that. But you can also use it to edge your paper, which makes it so you have a clean, finished edge around, and then you're painting in the middle. You can also paint edgeless, which means you just paint to the edge of the paper. That tends to be a little bit messier because then as your brush runs over, you can see where the brush hit here, that would now be on whatever's below that. So the only thing with that is this paper tends to peel when you peel this off. So you can see it creates that nice clean edge. But if this is overly sticky tape, this black one's not as bad, but it can sometimes rip up the surface on the paper. So you do need to be careful and always peel at an angle away from, so if it does start pulling, it doesn't rip a big chunk of your printout. So a few other things that are handy to have is some sort of stir stick. Again, grab a few from Starbucks at the stir counter. These little tiny ones work great. Regular popsicle sticks also work just fine. You can get a set of popsicle sticks at the dollar store for, well, $1. I usually have some sort of piece of plastic, so as I'm working with my paint, say it's sitting here, I can cover the paint. That just keeps it from drying out as quickly. As it is summer, it is hot, and things dry very fast in here in Vegas because all of that wet dries out. So you can see, here's a stir stick I've used. They can be saved and reused once they're dry. The other thing you'll need is some sort of board to protect your work surface. So here, I have a giant box, one of those. Say hi, buddy. Protecting my table, so it's just a big giant cardboard box. That works fine. I also have here, it's an artist board. You can buy one of these if you want, but you don't have to have it. Like I said, an artist cardboard works just fine. Nice things with the artist board is it gives you something. Let's see if I can get back now. You can tape your page to, or you can use the clips to hold things on. It has a handle. The nice thing is if you tape your paper to this and it needs to dry, but you want to eat at your kitchen table, you can lean it up on, on something, and it's safe. It's still going to dry, but it's not going to be in the way. So just a couple other things that you might want to pick up is, well, it's not even pick up. You find around your house. You'll need some sort of rinse cup for when you're painting to rinse your brushes in. Something with some weight to it, like a ceramic mug. Any old coffee mug will work. But generally you dedicate it to it because it does get evidence of paint in there. So, I wouldn't like make tea in this tomorrow. The paint is non-toxic, but don't really want to drink out of it. But you want a pretty heavy mug because when you're taking your brush, you need to rinse it pretty vigorously. And if this is flimsy like a plastic cup, it could tip over and spill. And then you'll have paint water everywhere. I also suggest one that doesn't look a lot like a mug you drink out of, because if you drink your paint water, it'll taste really, really nasty. And then lastly is possibly an apron, because paint can be messy and it can get on clothes. It doesn't necessarily come off easily. If you get paint on a surface, it's going to be there. you get it on your clothes, you might be able to get it off, get it out while it's still wet, but most likely it will have remnants for years to come. So either dedicate something that you don't to wear while you're working that you don't care about, or grab an apron. I usually get most of the paint on my hands and arms, so I just try to avoid wearing a sweatshirt or a sweater or long sleeves that I don't care about. So the last thing you might want to have is a roll of paper towels, or you can dedicate a kitchen towel. Like just buy a cheap terry cloth towel that you don't mind getting paint in and on, and dedicate that to your painting rags. Lots of artists just use that because it's more eco-friendly. I often just use paper towels, and I use them until they're well and truly done, and then throw them away or compost them. So other than that, it's something to wipe your brush on to dry it and clean off the paint with, that sort of thing. Other than that, that's our supplies. That's what comes in the kit, and also can be bought extra. I hope you have fun. Once you start using supplies, going into Dick Blick can be very dangerous. If I go in there, I can't ever walk out without a few $100s worth of art supplies. So start with what you have, and as you go, feel free to go back and buy some extra stuff. Anyway, everything in your kit should take you through the semester if you use it frugally, with maybe the exception of a paint color or two that you might need an extra tube of. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.